So greetings from Melbourne. Can everybody hear me?
Perfect.
Okay. Yeah, very interesting. I only caught maybe the last 10 minutes of Evan's talk and then the discussion around some of the questions. I'm in total agreement where I was going to suppose my presentation around the fact that I'm not a technical expert and I'm not a legislative forced migration crisis expert either. I'm somebody who's been looking at this field for maybe almost a quarter of a century now and dipping my toe in through field work and ongoing projects in the refugee context. Now, Faheem and I sort of share a bit of geographical, I guess, project area around Burma, Myanmar, and the different types of ethnic refugees who've come out of that situation. For me, it's the Quran, for Faheem, the Rohingya. But I would absolutely agree that the devil is in the detail, and my talk is more about, is a pragmatic use for somebody to be identified, to get them into the camp, and then avail them to the services of shelter, food, healthcare, those sort of things. Now, at a very sort of basic level, a refugee can come in without any identification. Refugees just don't think about for the next, 6 months, I'm planning on maybe leaving the country. These things can happen overnight. And often it's not pack up the passports, or we don't have passports, or we're digitally illiterate. And so then we get all these power relationships of suddenly I've gone this perilous journey through on the road to refuge. I'm now in this massive camp situation and I'm being presented with fingerprinting, maybe the first time ever. But even worse, I've got this sort of headset and camera set up now to be looking through. And the power relationship is, look, I can't say no to this. If I say no, my family, my children, myself, we don't have access to any of these services that are in the camp. And the enrolment process of getting all that data in, the biodata through biometrics, is really the starting point. And then we go into the power relationships of who are these technical partners who are providing the technical expertise. Now, the UNHCR primarily is a service provider. I talk about the refugees as the recipients, and it's really this business relationship that is developed. There's a lot of intellectual property. There's very little sharing of data, which I've raised since, and Katina knows this, since about the early 2000s. None of these issues have ever sort of progressed any further. So the paradigm case, I don't think, there is the perfect case. Input from the people, absolutely. And I was going to mention in a later slide that how about we actually ask the refugees what it is that they want? What do they think this identification process will offer them? And then I'm just wishing that I had Boy Thway here, who's a refugee now working at Swinburne with me, and he could give you the first-hand experience. Whereas another part of my introductory talk was to say, look, I've never been a refugee. Touch wood, we probably all will be in the future, the way things are going. But I've never had to go through that perilous journey of becoming a refugee. But I know people who have. I've got these intimate relationships with them, and this has been ongoing since, I guess, the early 2000s, maybe a couple of years before. The political problem versus a sort of fiction again, that's water and oil, a political, technical solution, how do the two fit together? Really, I think the biometrics is the first stage of giving some sort of sense of security to the refugees, to avail them to the access provided by the UNHCR and other agencies, NGOs, Doctors Without Borders that I've worked with, Auscare, Care Australia, those sort of organisations. But I'm really at the pragmatic stage of saying, look, we need identification. I understand there's all these privacy issues which are now emerging up to the surface, and I'll talk a bit about those later on. But that's probably what I took away from the first 10 minutes or so. Faheem, want to jump in and support me? Give me some other ammunition on how do we go through this sort of perilous stepping through the road to refuge, why people are there, and then all these other issues which are almost like wicked problems now. Very hard to solve, so many stakeholders involved.
Thank you so much. This is a fascinating thing. And Jason, it's finally nice to meet you in person. I've been a big fan of your work, and to Katina and others. So the whole idea, it's fascinating when I'm hearing things, but let me just share the context I'm coming from. Right now, my social media network is flooded with people, and we are actually, I think in ASU, we are kind of having a laugh about it. That hey, people are like, oh, I'm teaching online. This is the first time I'm doing it. Blah blah blah. I'm teaching, like I'm participating in meetings online. For us in ASU, it's that's what we do. It's not a biggie for us. But while I'm saying this, I'm just it just struck me I think last week that imagine we're doing things online and it's a big thing for us, but we will also see the robustness of our communication technologies and whatnot. But I'm coming, my workplace right now, the Rohingya refugee camps, I can guarantee you, without being able to access high-speed internet and in a legal way, and also it's not available market-wise. If we requested any of them to participate in this talk, they would have. They have the resilience, they have the innovation among the people there to do this. How they're doing it, that's the thing I've been working on and finding in the last 2.5 years. So, and that's what I'm going to talk about. Some of the things that I would like to share. But if you want to step back, and I'm amazed and of course not surprised talking about deterministic ideas and how we should not commit to those. It's a huge thing, and for many political displaced population, many of them are fortunate to have the identity of refugees. Most of them don't. So this displaced population identity is a huge crisis, and that's one of the very reasons they are driven out of their lands. For example, for the Rohingyas, as you know, there's a huge problem in their own constitutions in the country. They have been dehumanized. They have become non-citizens. So this identity issue is always there for them. And then it kind of boiled up to so many other things when they were in Myanmar and when they crossed border to Bangladesh and in other parts of the world when they're going, they cannot have their own identity. And the UNHCR comes in. And I'm so glad that I think I'm talking first and then Jason. I'm not sure what's the
Yes.
serial would be.
Yes.
Because then Jason can give the bigger picture of it. But this power dynamics is huge. This asymmetry of power is huge. And even though we say, oh, we need participation, we need them to talk, but to what extent they can? Let's be fair on this. First of all, are they going to speak their mind when they're compromised in terms of the situations when we are talking about their access to food and access to resources? That's something we really need to look into. And if we really want to design things, it's very important to actually give time and not rush things. Mm-hmm. Now, it's a fallacy when we have these humanitarian emergencies and responses that we need to have, and then we need time to design things for them. And in many cases, what happens is that people would say that they don't want, when you talk about technology, it comes later. They first need to be fed, they first need to be, have medicines and whatnot. And then the other things, whatever we are doing, it's fine. Let's not give them trouble having them in conversation on those kind of things of technology design and technology applications and technology customization part of it. So, and I'm going to share some of the things that I've been doing the last 2 years of asking them about their aspirations and perceptions about information and communication technology. How they would see internet to be designed, how they would like to see internet and connectivity, or so many other things. So I think, yes, we do recognize at the macro level, yes, participation is needed, but so much to be done. And technology is just a part of it in terms of our perception and how we are including them in the conversation. Just including them is not going to be good enough. It has to be done in an equitable and just way. And I think, and for that, we need long-term involvement and conversations inclusive for them. So I know it's vague enough, but we have slides to back it up.